Assad is Syria's past. The future could be dominated by the HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, terrorists until November this year, now the rulers of Syria. HTS led the lightning offensive that ousted Bashar al-Assad. They have appointed an interim leader now. Clearly, they see themselves as rulers in waiting. And guess what? The world doesn't seem to have a problem with that. Let me show you some pictures from Sunday. That's a United Nations official with the leader of HTS, Abu Muhammad al-Julani, the HTS leader. Now, these two men were discussing Syria's future. To give you some context, HTS was linked to the Al-Qaeda and ISIS. It was part of the United Nations terrorist list. It was also part of the American, British and European terror lists. So what does that make the man who leads this group? I assume a terrorist. But the world doesn't seem to think so. They're busy mainstreaming the HTS leadership. The UN has called for Syria's sanctions to be lifted. They're also looking at delisting HTS.
We will hopefully see a quick end to sanctions so that we can see really rallying around building up Syria again. And then, my last point, we need to see, of course, justice and accountability for crimes. And we need to make sure that that goes through a credible justice system and that we don't see any revenge.
It's not just the United Nations. The US has already made direct contact with the rebels, and Europe is planning the same.
So, first, yes, we've been in contact with HTS and with other parties. We have impressed upon everyone we've been in contact with the importance of helping find Austin Tice and bringing him home.
HTS remains a proscribed organisation, but we can have diplomatic contact, and so we do have diplomatic contact, as you would expect.
I've also tasked a European top diplomat in Syria to go to Damascus to make the contacts with the new government and people there.
How about that? HTS still remains on the terror list, yet these countries are all talking to them. Even Russia and Iran have reached out to the rebel leadership. We're talking about staunch allies of Assad. They fought the HTS on his behalf, but now they're busy talking to them. So I guess the question is obvious. What changed between November 2024 and December 2024? What is the difference? How did a terror group become mainstream? Well, the answer is simple. They captured power in Damascus. You see, all major players have stakes in Syria. The US has soldiers, Russia has ports and warships, Iran has proxies, and Europe is hosting millions of Syrian refugees. All these countries have something to achieve or get from Syria. Hence their outreach to HTS. Very different from what happened in Afghanistan. Just think back to late 2021. That's when the Taliban captured Kabul. Back then, nobody reached out to them, and rightly so. The Taliban was a radical Islamist group. They wanted to crack down on women's rights. They had no interest in democracy, so the West said, we will not talk to you. We will withhold contacts to put pressure on the new regime in Kabul. That's what the world did. So what's different in Syria? Thousands of Shia minorities are fleeing the country. They fear a crackdown from HTS. Also, let me show you a recent picture of Syria's interim prime minister. See those flags behind him? One is the flag of the Free Syrian State. The other has an Islamic prayer, the same flag that is used by the Taliban in Afghanistan. So let me ask once again, what is different in Syria? Well, in Syria, the ousted regime was anti-West. But in Afghanistan, the ousted regime was pro-West. That's a big difference. Plus, Syria has implications for West Asia and Israel. But Afghanistan is located in boring old South Asia. Perhaps that explains the difference. And don't get us wrong here. We are not saying recognize the Taliban. We are saying there has to be a playbook. There has to be a rule book, a strategy to deal with such rogue and violent rulers. Because terrorists are not defined by their position, they're defined by their actions. If their actions change, we can understand. Let's say the HTS reaches out to other rebel factions. They agree to share power. They draft a constitution for Syria. They hold free and fair elections. Or let's say the Taliban opens up schools to women. They too agree to hold free and fair elections. Then we can understand having this conversation. But the HTS has not done that yet. The United Nations created a roadmap for Syria in 2015. Like I said, outreach, constitution, and elections. That was the plan. But the HTS says that plan has to be reassessed. We're not sure what that means. Maybe they're still open to elections, or maybe they're going the Taliban route. The fact is, we have no clue about their intentions. All we have are tall promises. Much like the Taliban 2.0 chatter in 2021. So my point is quite simple. Focus on actions, not power. Use the leverage of contact to push the needle in the right direction. If not, this new chapter for Syria could be a flashback.